talking about journeys, destinations, culture, adventure, gear, conservation, and all the things we haven't yet thought of. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome back to the At Overland Europe podcast. My name is Mike Brady, and today I'm joined by my good friend Anton Poplett, founder of the non-profit organisation 4x4 Out Far. Before we wander into the studio, I'd like to briefly introduce Anton and his amazing work. Based in South Africa, Anton runs several humanitarian and wildlife projects. For years now, he's been driving into the bush to seek out remote villages, where he and his team perform eyesight tests on all the school children and, where necessary, provide corrective glasses on the spot and free of charge. Most recently, he has been working with several conservation organisations in a bid to find solutions for elephant-human conflict. One of the ongoing challenges they face entails erecting and servicing vast lengths of electrified fencing. If you want to find out more about Anton's projects, and maybe even support his endeavours, visit his website, 4x4outfar.com. As usual, you can find the link in the description. You turned your microphone off.
That must have reset itself.
Yeah. Now we're going to have the fun.
Yes, that reset itself.
Trying to recut that. This is something for Tristan to go and weep about.
Sorry, Tristan.
So how are you?
Yeah, man, it's been crazy. It's really been crazy.
You had a wonderful trip.
It was amazing. Like yesterday and today, I started getting messages from the guys that we were with. Just like, we're missing you. We wish you were back. You know, like, we miss you. In fact, I can send a screenshot. The guy, one of the chaps that we worked with on there's two teams on the Blaaaah. There's Blaaaah 1 and Blaaaah 2. And we
What's
camped
a
and stayed
Blaaaah?
with the guys. The Blaaaah is around, so there's different versions of Blaaaah. Their version is like a round, I say fabric, but like a shade cloth, like a big shade cloth that goes all the way around. It's about 1.8 meters high. Mm-hmm. And it's obviously got an open top. And what it is the cattle come in and out in the morning. So they come out in the morning and then they go out into pasture and they do their vibe in the pasture, and then they have 4 herders. And from the 4 herders, you got 1 in the front, 1 at the back, and then 2 on port and starboard side, on the left and right. And they protect the cattle, and they move the cattle where they need to go. Mm-hmm. So they protect the cattle from the wild animals. And so carrying firearms in Botswana is illegal. So unless it's registered, so like hunters and whatever, they would have firearms. So these guys don't even carry knives. And
Wow.
And I was like, I had my one big bush knife on my left and I had my Leatherman on the right, and I was like, I was ready, dude. If anything came running out the bush, dude, I was going to whip one of these out as quick as possible. And it was amazing. I mean, these guys are absolute legends. The one guy that I really connected with carries a very, they have time as a herder. You have time, and he made a very nice long stick, so nice handle, and then like a bit of a knob like towards the end. So I was like, "Ooh, that's nice. I might like to, make one of those." He says, "No, I'll make one for you." I said, "No, I can make one. It's fine." So they've got a very nice, what's called as lead wood, dark wood. It's heavy. Very, very nice. Anyway, I find a stick and I'm like, okay, this is it. So I pick his up and I have a look at my raw stick and branch, whatever you want to call it. And I look at his and I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna do this. And he goes, okay. I said, do you want it back? He goes, yes. I said, does it have a name? And he goes, rifle. So I was like, dude, if that's your rifle, bro, use it. If it works, that's what's going to happen. So we walked back, and it was about a 1.5-2 kilometer walk to where they were, and we walked back to camp. And later on that evening, we'd finished off. We went to go and watch that dancing. I sent you the video, and we watched the dancing. It was amazing, that performance. And then got back to camp, and I took my special axe out and my Leatherman, and I started chopping and cleaning up. And all of these guys came out that no, they're going to do this. They want to honor like the work, and they want to do this. They didn't trust that I was, that I was good enough to do the job. So I was like, fine. But it's mine. No one takes it. You hear me? It's a big joke. And as I walk off, they're all just laughing at me. They're like, yeah, how's this like? What's he going to do with this thing? Anyway, it's still sitting in my vehicle downstairs. And I'm going to clean it up and some more. It's just really nice. And a great memento of a great story of sitting around a fire, braaiing with these guys. And there's so much endless dry wood that we can use. That's proper wood, and hard wood that we started braaiing every evening. And I was like, well, let's all eat together, guys. So they have 4 people that do the herding. They've got the team leader, and he does the paperwork and checks on the herd. And, he goes backwards and forwards into town if he has to get anything. And then they've got a lady that cooks. And I said, well, let me know what time you're going to eat. And they said, no, they've eaten already. I'm like, you guys have just got back. How you haven't eaten already? It's not possible. You're going to go back like half an hour ago. No, they never had lunches. So they got back and they ate immediately. So I said, okay, well, then I'm going to make a fire so that we can cook. And they're like, no, we'll do it. I'm like, you're not doing anything, dude. You just chill. I'll make a fire. Anyway, again, the race was on. I literally ran down to the vehicle as a joke and started the fire. And then it was so epic, Mike. Everyone just came and sat around the fire and we just spoke and had a bit of like team building and connected with the guys and asked them questions, like what is the most frightening thing that's happened to you here? Like, tell me a story that is like something that's really affected you here, good or bad, And there's some. I mean, these are brave people, but they're still human, and there's still a lot that affects them that they don't. As Africans don't. They're very proud people, so they don't really say if anything's wrong. They won't say, well, like I'm upset or I'm sad or. They'll just quietly filter and do their own thing. And I was like, no, we're a team here. Let's sit and tell me, and the stories like, geez, the one oak that's been there the longest. I said, do you want to share a story? He goes, no. I said, no, dude, everyone's got to share a story, whether it's good or bad. It doesn't matter, but we all want to learn. And the moment I said that, he like relaxed and he was like, okay. And they were herding and, a lion started coming towards them. And 2 of the herders just bolted. So he's like, now what? You can't leave me alone here with, and that's something that I want to do is I want to get them radios, that they can communicate with each other. You can't exactly shout and whistle and say, oh, hey, Mark, over there, there's lions on that side over there if you want to, just in case, So there's no communication amongst them. And this guy was clearly like affected about it, not in tears, but you could see it was something that was really, something that really affected him. And the one lady, she said to me, I said, okay, your turn. Tell me a story. And she was in camp cooking and an elephant just like walked into camp. And again, what do? You've got a 5-6 ton animal that's wild that doesn't care about you walking and going, oh, what's happening here? Okay, let's. So they get trained and they practice all these things, but still, you've got to really have your head screwed on right.
Sounds like it. Good grief.
It's quite a thing. Eh? I mean, and I was so what's the word? Grateful and blessed to have these experiences. And some of the people I'd known before from other projects and work that I've done in the area. So to see them was great and see how they've slowly moved up in the ranks and, their responsibilities have changed and understanding the connections, like the intricacies between the different areas of work that they're involved in. And yes, Mark, it was unreal. It was really amazing. And I was really, really stoked to have the experience. And I can't wait to go back. I want to plan to be back there in March next year. And there's a lot that's going to happen between now and then too. A lot.
So is this all part of your human-wildlife conflict project where you're sort of helping to create a dividing line, but without creating one, so to speak?
Correct. It is. It's all part of showing the intricacies and the spider web of what they do with the communities. And, the elephant fencing is not just about putting up elephant fences. They've got the buses, the EcoExist. It's called the Ellie Express, and they've got some vans or combis. It's like a high ace that goes backwards and forwards and picks up the kids from these different stations and drops them off at the school. And people think, oh, well, that's just, that's like normal. It's actually not normal, because for many, many years, up until like just over a year ago or so, these kids would walk to school and get stompled on by elephants. Oof. So, it's hectic. So there's a lot behind this, and the funding, to pay for a high ace, and then the maintenance, because the roads are, I don't know what you call it. It's not a road. It looks like a road, but when you drive on it, your fillings come out and your shocks come off and your springs decide, I don't like this road, so I'm just not going to work. And then your electric starts playing games because everything's jumping and everything's just bouncing all over the place. And then you stop and you're like, what? And I can't swear, but you're like, what's happening right now? I don't know, And I kind of knew, because of where we were going, that it's going to be super hot. So lithium batteries were going to be a problem charging. So I knew all of these type of things, and I was having a few concerns about the CTEC. Mm-hmm. And I met with the guys at CTEC. I know them well. They're amazing guys in Cape Town. And I met with them before I left, and I said, listen, I'm worried about this. And we looked and we checked, and they were like, no, everything's okay. And so, okay, if you say so, let's see. And choose Bob. I had issues. I had to reset the CTEC. So I had to literally take, as you know, you're an amazing, handsome Defender driver. So you take the seat off and you get into the battery box. And in my battery box, I only have my battery and the CTEC. Well, I have my battery, the CTEC, and another little DC charger. It's like literally the size of an Apple TV. It's tiny. It's beautiful. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I had to take the power off the CTEC, and so it would reset itself and then plug it back in, because it was charging the battery to full. And then after an hour or so, it was switching off. And I was like, I can't have that, because when we get to camp, I need my fridge and freezer to run all night. And my fridge and freezer don't draw a lot of power, so I wasn't going to lose battery power. That I was fine with. What I was going to lose is time to recharge the battery. Right. And that's what you got to worry about. So having your solar panel out during the day, having, making sure that it's charging from the alternator while driving, it was, everything played a role. And I was like, not freaking out, but I was very concerned about it, because you can't just have power loss like that. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I got back and I spoke to them. I sent them videos. I got back, and that one of the main guys, Jason in Cape Town, came over and we had a look. And it turned out, and we're still testing this, we don't know yet, but it turned out, so on the CTEC, you've got two little cables, tiny little black and red cables that come out of the unit. They've got nothing on the end. And that apparently needed to be put onto the positive of the CTEC, not of the battery. So that was just floating around, it didn't have anywhere to go. So I said, but, you guys have seen all of this and no one brought it up. Like the main CTEC guy in Cape Town, the other tech guy. And he says, no, that needs to be put onto the positive of the CTEC that goes onto the cranking battery positive. So I was like, bit late to figure that one out now when I've just come home. So they're going to test it.
Especially when they'd looked at it beforehand.
Well, that was it. I've sent like a bunch of videos and pictures. Mm. And I've said, so it just obviously isn't something that people look at generally. But the interesting thing is the first company, proper 4x4 supply company, amazing, really good company, they installed it. They never did it. Then the second company, when I redid the wiring, a second company also, electrical engineers, the whole vibe, they work on overlanding vehicles. They didn't do it either. Hmm. And then it went to CTEC, and they looked at it, and we tested it and saw it, nothing. So only when I'm home do we then figure out, okay, this is the problem.
That's crazy. Well, it's obviously not in the manual.
It doesn't seem to be. I mean, I looked. It doesn't show anything. So it's a bit of it might do. I mean, somewhere down the line in the small print, I don't know, but I'll find out. My main concern is that it was charging okay from the alternator, but then turning off.
Mm-hmm.
So that I can deal with. But then with the solar panel, I got a 240 watt solar panel. So it should be pumping in on a good day, perfect angle, the whole vibe. It should be pumping in at least 170 watts of power, which is about 14 amps or so, which is perfect. It can go up to 20, but 14 amps or so. And it wasn't charging enough to cope with the heat and for the slowness of the lithium to charge. So, yeah.
So, other than your fridges, what do you need all the power for?
Charging devices.
Such as?
In certain areas, we're allowed to use drones.
Mm-hmm.
Cameras, drones, laptops. Cam, my photographer, we had a bit of a laughing joke about it. He's got an older MacBook, 16-inch.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not joking. This thing was drawing 10 amps, 11 amps. And I'm like, mine draws like 0.3 and yours is drawing like 10, dude. That's more than my fridge. That's more than my whole system put together. So I was like, you're not using anything at night. You're not plugging that in. When we're driving, you can plug it in and charge it. But it's the same problem because of the heat. The batteries can't cope. The laptops weren't coping. That's how hot it was. So
what sort of temperatures did you actually have then?
Average between 38 to 42.
Oh, that's warm.
And humid, because when the rains come, it was amazing. We'd be sitting chilling, and the temperatures were fine. Like I say, fine, they were like 35, but you're in the shade, it's okay. And then the late afternoon, and you can see some of the rain starting to filter in over the back end of the Okavango, and the temperature would increase by 5 degrees. And I was like, did you guys feel that? And Cam goes, what just happened? I'm like, rain's coming, and the humidity was just, it was hectic. So that was the average, was between nothing below 35 during the day. Nothing.
That's warm.
It was warm. At night, I had sleeping bags, but not a full sleeping bag. I halved the sleeping bag. So I had one half, he had the other half, just as like a sheet.
Yeah.
And both of us didn't sleep with them on. We had the windows, not the window. We had just the mesh open on the three sides,
mm-hmm.
and just to allow as much fresh air to come through as possible, as much as possible, because of the heat. At night it was nice. At about 5 a.m, it was a really nice temperature.
Yeah, but
then
not
by
for
7.
long.
But then by like 6:30, 7, that was out the window. That's like, no. And I had to wear a shirt. Jeez, I battle wearing a shirt on a good day, and I had to wear a shirt. I was like really, really struggling.
Wow.
So when it was time to climb in the vehicle, we just had aircon going.
Yeah,
and we actually put our phones. I use an iPad mini that's my main device. That's for everything. That's my navigation. That's my everything. And on the Defender, it's great because on the Puma, you've got the 2 middle air vents that are fixed forward, and then you've got the round ones that you can turn and angle. And my iPad sits on that little platform in front of those 2 air vents, so it doesn't get hot when I'm driving because it's got the aircon, fresh air going onto it. And we both put our phones on charge and then just bombed it behind where the aircon was, just so that they would charge, because by the afternoon, when the batteries were at like 50% just from the heat, they wouldn't charge because of the heat.
Yeah.
So it switched off. So yeah, it was hot.
That's actually quite sort of, I think to a certain extent brave, because iPad minis and iPads, when they get hot, they go black very quickly, don't they? But if you've got your aircon there all the time, then you can bridge that gap.
That's right. They completely switch off. And so, luckily with the iPad, because it's sitting by the air and by the aircon the whole time, when we're driving, then I'm not worried about it. When we're not driving, then I remove it from the dash and I put it at the back of the vehicle when I got the awning and that up, just to try and keep everything as cool as possible. You know, we have to be smart about these things. And Mark, I don't know about but I even on my freezer, I'll turn my freezer up when we're driving and when the solar is up. But then the moment the sun's down and we're not driving, my freezer goes down to like 0, not at like -10 or whatever it is, -15. I turn it down to 0.
Yeah, so it's not drawing.
Correct, because just so that it's not taking extra power overnight. The moment the sun's out, bomb it back on again, just so that you try and, what you want to do is, and this is where I can't say I think many people are going wrong. Maybe I do. Many people just put as much amperage in their vehicle as possible, like as many batteries as possible. But it's not really realistic unless you got one of those big, beautiful, man trucks. Those things are amazing. Where you can put 600, 800 amp hour batteries in, In our vehicles, it's a challenge. I don't have a lot of real estate in order to put batteries. So we've got to maintain and know what our power draw is, which is why I was so focused on it before I left, because my experience said to me, if you get it wrong, it's a problem.
Yeah.
And I've had it before. So what everyone should be doing is have big enough battery to top up, not charge. Does that make sense? So you want to have a battery big enough that overnight you'll use maybe 20%. So the next day, all you're doing is you're topping up 20%.
Yeah.
It's down to 80, you're topping up 20. That type of thing. When you deplete your battery overnight to like whatever, 30%, now you're charging your battery. And now do you have enough time in order to charge the battery? If it's drawing that much power, then during the day, if you don't have enough solar panels, and it's not, again, you don't just carry endless amounts of solar panels. If you're carrying, solar panels, those are out, but it's still drawing power while it's trying to put power in.
Yeah.
So it takes longer. If you're driving for 2-3 hours, that helps. That obviously puts a lot of power, from the alternator, and then it goes to a different discussion of, is it a smart alternator or a normal alternator? So our Defenders are standard alternators. The smart alternators pump big power through, but not ours. So yeah, you've got to be smart about this. And I just look at some of these guys, and they got like 600 amp hour, three 200 amp hour batteries, and I'm like, that's just so much space for what?
And extra weight.
I've got a 3,000 watt inverter. Exactly. I got a 3,000 watt inverter. Like, what do you need a 3,000 watt inverter for, dude? That's the size of my 3D printer that's sitting right here. I'm like, I don't know. It just doesn't make sense. It's all for the bigger, the better. Buying the big Red Arc equipment, and it's just so much money that people put into it, and I don't get it. If I built vehicles, it would be very, very different. I think very different.
Sure. You've got a 3D printer there.
I have a 3D printer.
What you been doing with that?
I'm in love with it. A friend of mine joked and said, "Are you going to take it with you?" And I actually thought about it. I actually thought about taking it, and I knew why I thought about taking it. So I've been printing things like this, hooks that goes onto the glass. Yeah. So you can hang stuff around the vehicle.
On the windows, yeah.
Yeah, some Christmas things, some just little Christmas things. And
that's ambitious and early of you.
Yeah, I just want to be more practical on stuff. I mean, I printed a drawer. I printed this thing here.
That's clever.
Yesterday.
So you got all your bits and pieces, and you can tuck that in your desk by the looks of things.
Exactly. And it's out of the way, off my desk. And that's what I want to do. I'll probably print another 1 or 2 just to get all the clutter off my desk, But I knew at the elephant fences, it's got like a plastic fitting that goes on the wood where the wire goes through to hold it in place. And what happens is when the elephants touch that, they get a fright and they push forward, they push their legs back, but it still hits and it breaks the fence. And I knew that those would be broken. Mm. And I was like, I actually thought about taking it with me. I don't know where I'd put it, but I actually thought about taking it and strapping it like on the back seat or something like that. Because I have a 500 watt inverter, which is even too big. I want a smaller inverter. I only need a 250 watt inverter. Don't need a big inverter. Laptops and phones and whatever, they don't take a lot of power. No. And this thing draws like maybe 300 watts. I'm like, middle of the day, solar panel in, printing one of those things will take about 25 minutes, anyway.
On the spot repairs.
Yeah, exactly. Best customer service ever.
So let's go back to your fences then. How much electricity do you put through these fences? Because, I mean, elephants, they've got really thick skin. I don't know. You're not supposed to sort of give them too much of a shock, I suppose.
No, it's not big power. It's like a little booster. It's about that big. And all it does is it sends a pulse every second. And each pulse is about 100 watts. Okay. So it's just like 100 watt, 100 watt, 100 watt, 100 watt. So it just pumps like that. So the elephant would touch it once, and if it was not pulsing at that, in between that second, then, it'll be fine. But then when it touches it again, and most things hold or touch something for, more than a second, and it just gives a shock, but it's not a burn. It just gets a fright. You as in you and I can literally touch it and we'll go, oof, but it's not exactly going to, stop my heart.
No.
So, and that's why it's all on solar. So they have a battery, they've got the booster, they've got a panel and a little inverter, and that just rotates, charges the battery during the day. So it pumps the power overnight. It's not very big at all.
Okay. How long are these fences then? Because, I mean, let's be honest, the bush is a huge area.
Yeah. So the one fence line in an area called Menaquena, one area, that's the lodge company. They're called Menaquena. Funny enough, these guys, Natural Selection, they're a safari company, and they do a lot of work with communities. And in a little village, or I'll say village, called Marimatau, they've got one that I think is like 12 kilometers of wiring. Yeah, it's massive. They've got, I think it's like 60 farmers all along the Boteti River that they have the farmland right in the river. Not in the river, sorry. If the river's this wide, their farmland is just like up on the side of and they go all the way along. So they get the fresh water and things like that. And you've got a lot of individual farmers all the way along like that. So it's and that's quite big. So the funding for one of these fences, because of the elephant corridors, is averages between $10,000-$12,000, and that's just the hardware.
Really?
That's not even installation. And EcoExist have a very good system. They got their own electrician. They got the guys that mend the fences, and this will all come out within the video when I start getting there. Is to a lot of it will. It'll show like what it takes to put one of these things up, and that my biggest thing when I do my humanitarian work is sustainability and accountability afterwards. So I don't like it when people rock up and they give something and then they disappear, and then they like no one's planned or organized to who's going to maintain it. And when the elephant fences first started being done and being put up, it became no one really knew what the results were going to be because it was the first time. In Mozambique, they use chilies to keep the elephants away, and they use bees. The elephants are terrified of bees, so they put beehives along.
Really?
Yeah, they put beehives along the fence lines. And in Botswana, they use the electric fencing vibe. So I forgot where I was going. Got all excited. I forgot what I was telling you. Jeez, sorry.
It'll come back in a second. Let me just ask you a question in the middle then, because as you say, you've got the river and you've got the farm which runs the length of the river. I mean, that's like a natural conflict with the elephants because everybody's looking for fresh water. So don't the elephants have, as you say, they've got their corridors?
Yeah.
And they normally stick to their corridors, don't they? Or do they create new corridors every time they go through? Because surely that would mean that if you know where the corridors are, you don't try and put a farm in the way. Is that too simple?
So to the Europeans and Westerners, yes. Elephants are very destructive, incredibly. They completely strip the land of where they walk. And the soil is amazing. So that's not right. When there's an opening in an area, someone will say, well, I want to plant some stuff there. And, part of the bigger picture here is the volume of elephants. There's a lot. There's more than what people think. And number two is populations are growing. So the government gives the local Setswana people property. If you're a born Setswana, they give you a farmland. And you can then go and farm it and do whatever. So these farmers have been there for many, many years. But because of growth between herds and population, schools, clinics, all of these things are being built in some of these remote areas. The congestion is, elephants are coming in. People are taking the land, for farmland going on this side, and it just keeps going like this, like this, like this. So the only spaces that they've got is becoming a lot more narrow. The one elephant corridor that we drive through is about 1 kilometer wide. It's very wide, and it's a massive corridor. And we actually camped at the end of the corridor, right on the Okavango, where the elephants were going to come through. And we got permission to do that because you can't just rock up and camp where you want. You'll just either get killed or, get the locals will tell you to just,
don't do it.
Don't go. Yeah. So it is a bit of a challenge, and what these clause and ecoexist are trying to do is find that middle ground between human and wildlife. And the elephant fencing is proven to be the most reliable and safe between both. Doesn't affect or kill the elephant.
Right.
And the farmland gets protected. That's quite key. So what I was talking about earlier, was sustainability. And what happens is when many of the fences were originally put up, no one knew what was going to happen down the line. The companies like Natural Selection and ecoexist and things like that were going to look at maintaining and keeping the fencing correct, but it's not fair that they keep paying for that. And some of the farmers have let go and not maintained the fences. So now there's a cost in order to repair and fix.
Yeah.
And that creates a whole nother problem. And that's now where the focus is to get the farmers in. And like I said, in that one section, you've got like 12 kilometers of fencing. And some of the farmers have kept the maintenance on their fencing. And some of the farmers are like, it's not planting season, don't care. And the elephants have completely broken them. And I have some of the pictures of the wiring where it's, when it's broken, it just all bundles up together. And it's just, someone's got to pay to have that done. And it's unfair on the farmer.
Yeah. Does that mean, though, that, as you say, it's not planting season, it's not the harvesting season, they actually switch everything off then? Because if they were still turned on, surely that would be a deterrent for the elephants.
It would, but basic maintenance is not being done by a huge amount of farmers. So, they can turn it off. I think what's happened is they've got too much wiring or too much of a distance between where the farmlands are. So what I mean is that if you've got hypothetically 12 kilometers, right, in a straight line, mm-hmm. and you've then got one of those boosters only every 6 kilometers, you've got a lot of farmland, you've got like 30 farms between that. And if one fence breaks, then that whole line is down.
Right.
So I think now what they're looking at doing, I don't know, but what they're looking at doing is saying, let's clump some of the farmlands more. So we'll say, right, every third farmland would get its own little unit. And then those 3 farmers would have to maintain that fencing, which is a much easier, sustainable fix. Because the farmers need to look after their own property and what's being given to them. Because the farmers were the ones that said, we want you to do this to help us. And then some farmers are doing more work than the other farmers, which is unfair. So I think that's what they're looking at doing. But as usual, there's a cost.
Yeah, and that's where you come in with your projects to try and raise the money for those to cover those costs. Yeah,
that's what we're trying to do. We're just trying to show good awareness and show where the money goes. Having a person that comes along and that does the social media, that takes the proper content and footage that gets edited and go online. It just shows, that people are not just throwing the money away. It's going towards like an amazing cause. And like I said, it's not just about the fences. the buses for the kids, and there's all these other like intricate things. They now, when they were there, they've been developing an app. They want to farm a product called millet. I've never heard of it until I got there now. But they want to farm a product called millet, and they want to sell the millet to people that buy it online. And the app is maps of farmland. So you've got to put all your details in, the farmer, what you do, how many in your family. You've got to put all your details in, how big your farmland is. You've got to take a photo. So you can't say I've got like 3 hectares and you've got a photo and it's like a little plot. You've got to walk the whole area twice. And they take into account the fencing. So you walk around where the elephant fencing is to say that your farmland's protected. Then you walk in the area that you'll be planting. You take a photo. And what it does is that if you're a buyer, you can say, okay, well, I want to buy some millet. I'll go into the app, and he places the order with this farmer, and he can see from planting seed all the way to delivery to him exactly what the story is. So there's 100% transparency between when it comes from the farmland gets to him, and that was one of the things that we were working with them on now is to help show what happens with the map. How they do it, what they do. It's really, really cool.
So what are the farmers, I mean, millet is obviously a new project for them. What have they been planting and harvesting until now?
So you get a lot of millies, for example, staple foods. So millies create millipap. That's a staple diet in that region. And then they'll do like their own veggies and things like that. And when we drive, I'll always pick up a mom with kids if I can. If I've got space, I'll pick up a mom with kids to help from the walks, or an elderly person that can't walk very far. So we picked up it must have been like mid-60s. Madala means old man in well, that's in Zulu, not even in Setswana. And we were just chatting to him, and he grows vegetables, garlic, tomatoes, and a few things like that, and sells them in the villages. Yeah, and so they do as much of their own product as they can.
Right. Okay. Then I don't know how this works, but if they're producing vegetables and stuff for the local communities right now, and they sell it in the market, who is buying millet potentially? Is that more commercial, or is it still for the local market?
So the millet, for example, will be for export, and to be honest, I actually have no clue for what. But I don't know.
I've
never heard of millet until I got there.
Doesn't that mean that their focus is going to change? That then you're going to have a situation where they can probably make more money selling the millet, and therefore they produce less vegetables for the local community, which means you then got to get the communities buying vegetables from somewhere else. Not
necessarily, no. So the farmlands differ. You get some of the farmland that produces their own consumption. Then you get some of the farmland that will produce for the village. And then you get the bigger farmers, and they're not massive big farmers, but they're bigger in those areas that will push to produce for export to make the money, so that they can export, so that they can earn more funds in order to buy and do more of their own things. So it's trying to completely upscale everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there's obviously then big demand for millet, which I've just looked up. The small round whole grain grown in India, Nigeria, and other Asian and African countries. So
yeah. I never heard of it. And I even tried to get the spelling right, but the network was so bad I couldn't use my phone. So I was like, I'll worry about it when I'm back. Yeah. That was hilarious.
Let me go back to this human-wildlife conflict, because I understand from what you're saying that the elephants, they can be really, really destructive. So that means that farmland is subject to damage. What's the situation with other wildlife? Because you say that, the children, they get trampled on by the elephants when they go to school, which is why you've got the minibuses. What about the other wild animals? Isn't that so much of a problem?
So in this region, they get messages when the lions start coming in. but it's mostly elephant, hippo, a bit of hyena. Those are like the lion's share of the problem. The hippos don't really come into town. They don't interfere with us. And people stay away from hippos anyway. That's a big no-no, the biggest killer in Africa. Hyenas don't really come close into these areas. There's too much. It's, some of it's too busy. So the main problem is mostly on the elephants on the elephant side and the volume of elephants that are there. I mean, the one night it was dark, we couldn't see, but we knew there must have been about 80, 90 elephants around us.
And that was just in that small area. Wow.
And where we had camped, it was quite a thing. I mean, at about 1 o'clock in the morning, the one elephant just went, Blaaaah! And I'm not joking. In fact, we actually measured it the next morning. It was about 50 meters from us, and what that was a bit of a warning shot. You've got this big round thing in the middle of the Okavango, and to an elephant, it's like, who is this? And if by blowing its trumpet, that big object moved, there would be bigger problems. But, because it's a big vehicle, they obviously realized, okay, it's nothing. So it moved on and it just carried on eating. We could hear it chewing the branch.
Did you go back to sleep after that?
No. When the moment the sun started coming light at about 5:30, we were looking out the windows like this, trying to see. And in fact, it was only in the mornings did we really see the elephants, because they came in at about 8 o'clock at night. It was just too dark. And the one herd, I mean, I remember standing on the bonnet on the fender of my Defender and with my binocs, and I counted about 45 elephants in one herd and 13 babies. Now, not like babies, not like 1 or 2 years old babies, like give it a month or two old babies, tiny. That's a lot. I mean, 45 in one herd and 13 of those were babies. That's a lot. So they couldn't move very quickly, but in the morning they need to get over the road into the drylands. So they go into the Okavango to drink and get the fresh greenery at night, and then they go back over into the Okavango drylands to relax and hide from the sun and things like that. And that was when we saw quite a few elephants. Yeah, it was very cool. I mean, I remember sitting in the morning and this lone late 19, 20 teenage elephant just slowly walked up, looked at us, sniffed around, flapped its ears a little bit, drank water, and then just quietly, slid off into the bush.
Very cool.
I didn't move at that stage. I didn't even drink my tea. I just sat there because, you don't want to make silly mistakes.
Don't want to upset it.
No.
What's the situation down there then with poaching? Is that a problem?
So, funny you say that. I'm actually starting to look see if I can get funding for a kiddies anti-poaching program. Just go into the schools, show like a cartoon video of what poaching is and what it does to the environment. Poaching is not a big deal in that area. When you start going up along the border, that's when it becomes a little bit more challenging. And going along the Zim border down past Tuli Block, that area, there is a lot of poaching. Not necessarily on the wildlife, on the not big volumes on the elephants and things like that. But they kill pangolins and send those to China type of thing. And then a lot of the antelope, the buck, just for their own consumption. So poaching is a very big deal, and it's very under-resourced in most of these areas. And what I've been wanting to do is put together a program to go in and take video and put something for the kids, put a projector onto the wall and say, this is what it is, and here's a little badge. And, if you see something here's a number that you can send a message to, and all that type of thing, because it is a big problem, and it's mostly left up to the safari companies to try and help and fund.
So the safari companies, in the sense of the tourist businesses, that they're relying on them to create cash to support it. Are there then wildlife rangers organized down there?
So there are a bunch, but again, they are individually funded by the safari companies.
Yeah.
In Hwangi, we stayed with one of the anti-poaching teams, and amazing Zimbos. And they would go out during the day, and then another team would go out at night. But again, you can't just walk around at night because it's wild. I mean, we were the one night we were braaiing. We'd just come back from doing an eye test at some of the schools, and we were braaiing, and the guy comes up to me, tall, skinny, very cool guy, and he goes, "Mr. Anton." Jeez, dude, I didn't, you got to make a noise when you walk up behind me. I didn't know you were there. So I said, "Yo, what's up?" And he goes, "You need to please pack up. There's some buffalo coming." I was like, "Okay, well, no one wants to have a fight with a 1-ton buffalo. So sure, like, how many buffalo? About 1,000. So I said to the team, I was like, "All right, everyone pack up. That's it. Take the meat off. We got to square off, get into our tents. There's the buffalo coming." And I said, "Is there anything else?" He goes, "Yes. Behind that is about 20 elephant." Jeez, okay. And then I said, and then now I'm joking. I'm like, "Is there anything else?" He goes, "Yes. About 20 minutes behind the elephant, there's about 5 lions." I'm like, "Oh, geez, well, I'm going to stop asking because I don't know what's worse than that." So, we all just packed up and left, and it was amazing. I mean, 1,000 buffalo came filtering through past the campsite. And the next morning, I dropped off part of the team at a school, and I had to hit. I
was going to just quickly interrupt you. So, okay, he said that you should go. You didn't actually go. All you did was to get in your rooftop tent.
Correct. Yeah.
That's different. If he told me to go, I would have tried to have gone somewhere, I think.
It's dark. You can't go anywhere.
That's true.
The next morning, I dropped off some of the team at a school to carry on the project, and I had to go back to, we were doing the project with Painted Dog. They do the Wild Dog Association in the area. Very, very cool NGO. And the buffalo were coming through over the road. And I had to turn the vehicle off because there's nothing else you can do. You just got to wait for all these buffalo and it was a lot. Yeah, I've actually still got footage of it somewhere. I've got dash cam footage of it because it's the only thing that runs all the time. I wasn't going to spend 15 minutes on a camera just watching buffalo go past. Yeah. Yeah, amazing.
That's spectacular.
But anti-poaching is it's getting bigger and bigger. With the cost of living these days and the requirements and the needs for food, it is becoming a big thing. It's not as bad as like Central Africa when they're killing the gorillas and selling all of that type of thing. And in the southern regions, it is becoming bad, and it's not spoken about enough. And I'm wanting to try and get to the kids and show video, something that they can enjoy, something that's like kind of funny, but they will remember.
Something they can relate to.
You can't, exactly, you can't say, well, there's 200,000 elephant and 10,000 elephant get killed a year. To the kids, it's like, it doesn't really register. They've got to understand what poaching is and what it means, and that it's not normal. So that's another. It doesn't exist until you write it down. I'm going to write that down.
Yes, that's a nice project actually, and so that would make a good story as well. And maybe we can work on that together. I
completely agree. And part of the challenge that I'm going to have program. Let's write it down for kids. Part of the challenge that I'm going to have, Mike, is because poachers are well funded.
Mm-hmm.
The anti-poaching teams don't get the funding that the poachers do.
Sure.
the poachers they're smart. They know routines. They know what happens. They get the bottom of the sole they get another sole of a shoe, and they put it underneath their shoe in the opposite direction. So they're walking that way, but the shoe looks like it's walking the opposite direction. Those are simple things that they do, and it's just not spoken about enough. And with the anti-poaching, with the people truly involved in the anti-poaching, it's like an old boys club. No one really lets you in. It's quite there's a massive trust factor. So I know a bunch of the right people that are wanting to get me in. They want to do this, but it's going to boil down to me getting the funding to go there and put a program together and do a cartoon and like 8 to 10 minutes, nothing very long, but it's, as to get 2 minutes of footage, you take like half a day of filming to do something.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, I know. And a lot of work means time and money. So, yes.
Time is money. You're getting very dark there for middle of the day.
I don't know what just happened. The cloud has gone very dark indeed. It started snowing, what was it, yesterday or the day before?
Oh, wow.
Which was like, where did that come from?
Yeah,
so
gosh.
The light switch is too far away, so it's dark.
It is going into winter.
Yeah, not at your end.
Well, no, can't wait. Going into summer. Can't wait to go camping this afternoon. Oh.
Where are you going?
A place called Stanford. It's outside of Hermanus. Hermanus is quite famous for whales and a beautiful town. It's exploded a bit in the sense of housing. Many people have gone there to retire and chill. It's got the most amazing waterfront. And during whaling season, during whale season, many of all the whales, when they calf, they come up along the shoreline and they hug the shoreline. So you can stand there and you literally see this whale's eye, like as big as it goes past. And we're going just past that. I've got friends that have got property. They moved from Cape Town and they bought farmland there. And we're going to go into Stanford and then turn left and go up into the mountain area.
Nice.
Yeah. It's just my daughter and I. Actually.
That's for a long weekend or?
Well, I'm going to pick her up from school and then head straight out. We're going to take us just over 2 hours to get there.
Well, that's not too far away, especially if it's that beautiful.
Yeah, it's very, very nice. It's very untapped. There's not a lot of campsites there, so we're very lucky. I actually know 2 people in that area that have invited me to go and camp there. So I'm very, very lucky.
Is that organized camping or is it wild camping?
Wild. Yeah. So we also have to watch out there. Got to watch out for leopard
as well.
So there's no just climbing out and So you put your headlamp on, and the first thing you do when you get out your tent in your wild camp, the first thing you do, you put your headlamp on, you quietly walk down, and while you're walking down, you're looking backwards as much as you can, because the moment you see something looking back at you, you then climb back into your tent. And it was hilarious. I climb out I start climbing down the rooftop tent at the iCamper. I get to the bottom and I turn around. So I've got the vehicle behind me and the ladder behind me, and I'm just slowly panning over everything that my headlamp will go, and I see nothing. So I'm like, okay, cool. So I walk around the back of my vehicle, and there's one of the dogs from Claws just sitting like a lion like this, staring at me. I nearly had to change my underwear right there and then. And the dog didn't even move. It just looked at me. And I was like, yes, I crap myself. I was like, you little shit. You did it on purpose.
Oh, dear.
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing. I'm looking forward to being here. Looking forward for you to be here.
Yes, I tell you, me too. We got so much which we can do together. But I think first of all,
I'm excited.
We're going to let you disappear for your weekend. And
cool.
Anton, you've got to pack. You've got to disappear.
Thank you. Yes.
And we will be talking very soon again.
Yeah. Very excited. Thank you very much.
Thanks for tuning in to the At Overland Europe podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and download our app for more adventures and exclusive content. Remember, you can find our guest social media and websites linked in the description below. Until next time, safe travels.